Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm here with a fun summer sewing project brought to you by Northcat. When life gives you lemons, make a table setting. We're using this fun When Life Gives You Lemons line from Northcat, and we're going to make a placemat, coaster, and napkin today. The first thing we need to do is make a template of our triangle. So cut out the paper piece from your pattern and then trace it onto some template plastic and cut that out. These are really useful when you're making a lot of the same units, and the template plastic is going to hold up a lot better than just using the paper. So we've cut out all our triangles and we're laying out 40 according to the pattern. So we're going to sew these together in rows, and we'll just layer the triangles and then sew our 1/4 inch seam. And you'll want to keep these in order so that you don't mess up your pattern. This is a good time to use a design wall or another method to keep these all together in the correct order. When you're sewing triangles together, it's a good idea to start with a leader strip. This will help get a smooth start on that point. Once you've sewn the first two together, press the seam open and then lay your next triangle onto the second one and sew those together. So you'll continue adding triangles in the same manner. Once you have all your rows sewn together, then you can sew them to each other. And it's a really good idea to pin, especially at these intersections where a lot of these seams are coming together. Because you've got triangles and they're biased, you get a little stretch. So you want to make sure that those line up really well when you sew them together. It's a good idea to start with a leader strip again, and I'm using my 1/4 inch foot to make sure my seam is accurate. Now that we have our placemat top assembled, we're going to trim the sides to make that fun shape. So we're trimming a 1/4 inch away from the points on the side so that we don't lose those when we go to finish the placemat. And do that on the other side too. Next, we'll layer our placemat for finishing. So we'll take our piece of batting and then we'll put our backing piece face up on top of that and our placemat face down. Then we'll pin and we'll stitch a 1/4 inch around the shape of the placemat and leave a 6 inch opening on one side for turning. You'll want to stay stitch around your opening, so let's start with the stay stitch and then we'll start our 1/4 inch seam. So we've sewn all the way around, we left our opening for turning, and now we'll trim the batting and backing to even with the top of the placemat. Now we'll turn the placemat through the opening we left. We'll give that a good pressing and then we'll hand stitch the opening closed. Next, we'll work on our coaster. So take your 6 remaining triangles and lay them out in the order you would like them to be on your coaster, and make sure all the dog-eared corners of the triangles are pointing towards the center. And now we will assemble this in the same way we did the placemat. So we have our 2 rows sewn together, so now we will sew the rows to each other to complete our coaster top. So once you have your coaster assembled, then we'll layer it for finishing the same way we did the placemat. So we have our batting, our backing, that's right side up, and then we'll layer our coaster top right side down. Put a few pins in there, and then we'll stitch around a 1/4 inch, and we're going to leave a 2-inch opening for turning. Now we'll trim our coaster to the hexagon shape. And now we can turn it through the opening that we left. We'll press that and then hand stitch this opening closed. Once you've hand stitched both the coaster and the placemat closed, then you can go ahead and quilt that as desired. For the final piece of our place setting, we're making a cloth napkin. So we've taken a 17-inch square and we're going to add a single fold binding to it. We like using a single fold on this instead of a double fold. It's just less bulky for this lightweight napkin. So we've lined up our 2-inch strip with the raw edge of the napkin, and we're going to sew along this edge. We are starting with a 1/2 inch folded under, and you don't want to start right at the edge. This is what's going to tuck into at the end. So we'll start down a little bit and then we'll start stitching along the edge, and we're using a 1/2 inch seam for this. To miter the corner on the binding, you'll stop a 1/2 inch from the edge of your fabric and take it out of the machine. Then you'll fold the binding strip up and then back down and line up the raw edges. And then you'll go back in and start stitching down the seam again. When you get back around to where you started, you can trim off any excess and then just layer those 2 pieces and just finish sewing back to where you started. Once you've finished adding your binding, you'll fold and press a 1/2 inch around the whole thing and then fold it again to the back. Then we'll choose a matching thread. We'll use black and stitch around the whole thing to hold that closed. We used Wonder Clips to hold our binding in place, and now we'll stitch along the edge of our napkin. Once you finish sewing your binding on, your napkin's complete. So now we have an adorable place setting, perfect for enjoying those summer evenings on your deck.